It's Ellie here for A&R Factory, and I'm joined by the gorgeous Chrissie Huntley from Bristol. Now, this lady over here has had her voice described as beautiful by a Radio 1 DJ. So isn't that a good way to intro you, Chrissie? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with that intro. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm really, really good, thank you. And as I was just saying before we started recording, I am so excited to chat to you because you have such an angelic voice, such a talent, and I feel like you come across really, really humble. And that's just from your press release and 30 seconds of chatting to you before this. We want to talk about your new single, though. It came out on the 7th of May, so not too long ago, Supposed to Be. So tell me all about that.
Sure. So Supposed to Be is a very special song to me because it was one of the first I ever wrote when I was a teenager and I got dumped by my boyfriend, which we've all been through. And I think that everyone's gone through that teenage heartbreak phase where they feel like that was their supposed to be, because it's when you're sort of coming of age and you're thinking into the future and things like that. And we were friends from when we were like 12, so I thought it was my supposed to be. So when I wrote it, I was obviously going through heartbreak, and my housemate at the time was like, you should write your feelings down and write a poem or something like that. And I'd never really written songs before. So I started writing my feelings down and writing poetry and things like that. And then Supposed to Be was born, and I was like, music's a pretty good way of dealing with emotion. And I'd never really had that before. So yeah, that was when it was written. No real intention of releasing it. And it was more just like a therapy session for me, really. And then 6 or 7 years later, I was like, you know what, I think this deserves to be heard, because it is a relatable subject matter, I suppose. So yeah, I decided to work on it through lockdown, and now it's out.
So why did you think now was the time then? Because I'm sure you've written loads of other amazing songs as well that maybe you've not released just yet, but why was it so like poignant like now?
I think for me, over the past year, obviously everyone's gone through a crazy year. And I do a lot of work with my music being a vessel for supporting mental health charities and things like that. And I think this year in particular, everyone's gone through a crazy year. And I think that it's important to connect with people on a sort of personal, emotional level. And this song in particular was obviously my gateway into using music as a healing process. So for me, because I had songs released before and I wiped them and decided to start from scratch. So I was like, if I'm starting from scratch, what's the perfect first song to release into the world that represents me? I was like, well, it has to be one of the first I've ever written. And this one was obviously the first that really helped me emotionally. Excuse me. So it was just a no-brainer, really. I thought that this would be the perfect entry point into my new style.
Well, it is gorgeous. And as you just mentioned it there, like you say, there is a big connect with your music and mental health. But you actually had a campaign with Mind the Mental Health charity, hashtag Let's Talk About It. So you could tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So that was when I first moved to Bristol. And the reason I moved to Bristol was I was going through mental health issues of my own. And excuse me, I knew I needed to make a change. So I decided to quit my office job back home, move to Bristol and study music full time. So it was quite a plunge. But yeah, so I did that, and I wrote a song for a family member who was also going through some mental health issues. And that was my first single, which ended up being the sort of vehicle for the campaign, Let's Talk About It. Seeing as my family kind of have the very British trope of not talking about things and having, stiff upper lip and all of that.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what, now's the time that we need to talk about things, because I found it very hard to talk about my emotions. And I think that in part was what led to my own mental health issues, was the fact I was bottling it in. So I was like, you know what, let's talk about it, let's get it out there. And I had a campaign that raised £500 for Mind charity, and we held an event which had a whole host of amazing people who I'd never met before. I was new to the city, but everyone was sharing and being so open, and it was just such an emotional evening, but it was just amazing.
Yeah. Oh, honestly, I can see you getting emotional now, and it's so lovely to talk about and celebrate something so fantastic. But as somebody who has struggled so much with anxiety, to say the achievements that you've had in your life so far are so grand. It's brilliant because you actually performed at Glastonbury in 2019. So how did you like cope with that? Do you feel like you're a different person on stage to how you are off, or how do you sort of like anx yourself up for a performance like that?
I feel like it sounds really cliche, but I genuinely feel like I'm just a completely different person in general to before I moved to Bristol. I think music, honestly, as cheesy as it sounds, changed my life. I moved to Bristol, studied it full time, and it seems so simple now, but it literally flicked a switch. And since I moved to Bristol, because I was suffering quite badly, as you say, with anxiety, panic attacks, and since I moved to Bristol, I haven't had a single panic attack or anything like that. And I honestly think it's because of music.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that since studying music and obviously getting myself out there and putting myself on stage in front of people was so scary to begin with, so scary. But since doing it, my confidence, not only as a performer, but as a person, has just completely grown. And as you say, with Glastonbury, that was a competition that I won, I was entered into the competition by my university. So I don't know if I would have had the courage to enter myself in, but we ended up winning, me and my band, and we got to play Glastonbury, which has been my dream since I was about 8. So yeah, it's just been an amazing whirlwind of a couple of years.
Well, thank God they had the belief in you when you needed that push, because look where you are now. And if people are wondering what is coming up for Miss Chrissie Huntley this year, what have you got in the pipeline, my love? Can you spill some beans?
Still a few beans. So I've got another single on its way, which is all finished. I'm just sorting out the final few touches. So that's on the way in the next month or 2, we'll see. And I've got lots and lots of new music. And obviously once gigs can open up again, I've just confirmed another gig for September, which I'm yet to announce. But I've got one in July as well in Bristol, which I'm so excited for. So yeah, it's going to be a good year, I think.
Which venue's that at? The one in Bristol, if people wanted to get tickets or come along?
It's at the Grain Barge, which is one of the boats on the harbour. So I'm so excited. It's the first time I get to sing on a boat, I think.
Oh my gosh, what, like tick that off the bucket list. And if people want to find you on the socials, where can they do that?
I'm Chrissie Huntley on everything. That's Chrissie with a CHRISSIE, spelled my whole name. Yeah, and you can find me everywhere.
Brilliant. Oh, Chrissie, thank you so much. And just as a lasting word, if somebody watches this who is struggling with their mental health or has got bad anxiety, not enough self-belief, but the impeccable talent mirroring you, what would you say is the first step to putting yourself out there when you feel like that?
I think it's exactly as you say, pretty much, as you have to just put yourself out there. I was so stuck in my own bubble and not talking about things. So talk about things. And if you're a performer, put yourself out there. It's the hardest bit is the first performance, the first hurdle, and it gets easier from there. So that's my
amazing. Chrissie, thank you so much. You're such like a breath of fresh air. You're lovely.
Oh, thanks.